Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we're back here today with another edition of Budget Magic. So this week, we are once again heading to Modern. Pretty excited for this deck, it's pretty sweet. And we are playing a white, almost mono white, but a little bit of black tokens list. As you can see, 95 bucks in the paper world, 36 ticks online, so not a bad deal for a pretty competitive Modern deck. And if you like making tokens, you like going wide and attacking, pumping up your little creatures with some Crusade or Anthem effects, I think you'll like the deck. It's pretty sweet. Anyway, let's talk about it. So we have a ton of token generators. First off, we have our 2-drops. We have 4 copies of Gather the Townsfolk and 4 copies of Raise the Alarm. These cards are really similar. Gather the Townsfolk for 1 and a white makes 2 1/1 white human creature tokens. Raise the Alarm for 1 and a white makes 2 1/1 white soldier tokens. So our deck does not care about creature types, humans, soldiers, spirits. We don't care. It's all the same to us. The main thing we want are tokens, because we do have some cards that work specifically with tokens. Then the main reason to play this deck are our really powerful spirit token generating cards. First off, we have Spectral Procession. It's super powerful. It's the classic. As far as the mana cost, it's a little confusing. As you can see, it costs 3 hybrid white or 2 generic. I don't know if I'm saying that properly. So you can cast a Spectral Procession for 6 generic mana, 1 white mana and 4 generic mana, 2 white mana and 2 generic mana, or just 3 white mana. I don't know why I just bothered to explain that all, because in our deck, we have only lands that tap for white mana, so we are always casting it for the 3 white mana option. So we can always cast Spectral Procession on turn 3, and for our 3 mana, we get 3 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying, which is really powerful. Having tokens, not only being able to go wide, but having tokens that are evasive and can get in damage or in a pinch block flyers is really powerful. Speaking of making 3 1/1 white spirit tokens, Triplicate Spirits is basically the same card. They cost 6 mana, 4 and 2 white, but it has Convoke, so we can tap creatures to reduce the mana cost, and we get 3 1/1 white spirit tokens with flying. So this works really well if we go like turn 2 Raise the Alarm, turn 3 Spectral Procession, on turn 4 we can tap some lands, tap a couple creatures, and Triplicate Spirits. So it works really well in the late game. Sometimes when we go really wide, we get to cast it just by tapping creatures. So it's just a really powerful effect. It is a little expensive compared to our other cards. That's why there's only 2 of them. And then finally in the middle, one of our 2 main deck cards that require black mana, Lingering Souls. So 3 mana, you get 2 1/1 white spirit tokens with flying, but it has flashback for 1 and a black, and you get 2 more 1/1 white spirit tokens with flying. So altogether, 5 mana, so 3, a white and a black. You get 4 1/1 white spirit tokens with flying. So again, it is just a really powerful go wide threat. The creature tokens are evasive, really good at getting in damage, and especially good when we can pump them up with some of our other cards. Then we have a pretty spicy one, Promise of Muli. So this one's a 3 mana enchantment, and it says whenever a creature we control is put in the graveyard from play, we sacrifice Promise of Muli. If we do, we get 4 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens. So this does 2 things. One is it makes it really hard for our opponent to just block and trade off with our creatures, because if our creature dies and we have a Promise of Muli on the battlefield, we get to replace that creature with 4 more spirit tokens. They don't have flying, but that's fine. It's still 4 bodies, 4 power, 4 toughness for 3 mana is a really good deal. It's also a good protection against a Wrath. One of the ways people can beat our deck, Pyroclasm, things like that. So if our opponent wipes our board and we have a Promise on the battlefield, we just get to sack it and replenish our board right away. So it's a good hedge and good protection against different Wraths that we could potentially run into. Then we have some ways to pump up our creature tokens. First, easily the best one, Intangible Virtue, 1 and a white enchantment. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. So on our deck, which is exclusively focused on creatures, this is one of the most powerful Crusade effects or Anthem effects that you could ever hope for. It is Not only is +1/+1 the norm for these type of effects, but vigilance is a really big deal. It lets us play offense-defense, so we can swing with all of our tokens, get in the damage, but we still have them back on defense, so if we need to block, we can. Then, 3 copies of Zealous Persecution, our other black card in the main deck. As I was playing the matches, I realized I really should have 4 of these. Zealous Persecution is the nuts. Instant, 1 white and 1 black mana. Until end of turn, creatures we control get +1/+1. Creatures our opponents control get -1/-1. This card is a blowout so often. It is really good. It might not be the best against Eldrazi decks, but against a lot of other decks, it kills a lot of our opponents' creatures, and it also offers a reasonable buff to our creatures. Plus, you can do it after blocks are declared, and that basically amounts to a 2 power and toughness shift, because our creatures which are blocking get +1/+1, our opponents get -1/-1, so it's really easy to work out some profitable blocks, maybe with the help of Intangible Virtue giving our creatures vigilance. So it is just a really good card, and if I was to play this deck again, I would probably go up to 4 copies. Then we also have our kind of big finishers, 3 copies of Hero of Bladehold. So our 1 non-token creature, it is a 4 mana 3/4, but it has Battle Cry, so whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn, so it is part way a pump effect to pump up all of our spirit tokens and our soldiers and all of our tokens, but it also produces tokens because whenever it attacks, we get 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens put on the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So essentially, Hero of Bladehold can attack by itself for 7, and its tokens stick around, so that gets progressively more. If there's not a blocker, the first attack is for 7, because we can stack the triggers, so we get the tokens first, then those tokens get the +1/+0 buff, and then the next turn, we are attacking with not only the 2 tokens we created the turn before, but the 2 more tokens, so it's attacking for 11, then it's attacking for 15. Hero of Bladehold can take over a game all by itself. That's what I'm trying to say. Then finally, 1 copy of Sorin, Lord of Innistrad. So, +1, make a 1/1 black vampire creature token with lifelink. Not a bad ability, but the real payoff is -2. You get an emblem, creatures you control get +1/+0. It's another way to have our creature tokens, when we're going wide, attack for more damage. And then in ultimate, we can destroy up to 3 target creatures and or other planeswalkers, and then once they die, we return them to the battlefield under our control. Our deck doesn't really do that. Most often, we are going to like -2, then +1, then -2, so we get 2 of those emblems, so our creatures are getting +2/+0 and a token out of the deal. That's more than worth the 4 mana that we pay for it. Also, if we're behind, it's a good way just to make that token every turn and chump and gain some life, because the token has lifelink, until we find more tokens, generators and heroes and such. Otherwise, a little bit of removal. We have 1 Oblivion Ring, 4 Path to Exile. Oblivion Ring isn't great, it's expensive, but it is a catch-all answer. Like, it can hit a Liliana of the Veil, it can hit a Karn Liberated, it can hit a Oblivion Ring. So, I mean, it can hit anything, which makes it alright, but 3 mana is a lot. Path to Exile, just the most efficient removal spell in Modern. It does drive up the cost of the deck a little bit, so make sure to check out the article on the website where I will have the ultra budget list posted. Then mana base wise, 13 planes, 4 Temple of Silence, the white-black Scryland, a single Scoured Baron, the white-black gain lands, and then the 4 Caves of Koilos I mentioned. Basically, they're just good budget duels. We make do since we don't have Godless Shrines and fetch lands. I didn't think it was necessary to play any basic swamps in the deck, because we want to make sure that we can cast our Spectral Procession on turn 3 with the 3 white mana every single time. So that's why there's no swamps. If we get Blood Moon, what do we lose? Zealous Persecution and Lingering Souls flashback? Not the end of the world. We can still win without those things in a lot of cases. Sideboard wise, 3 Tormod script, answer graveyard decks for Duress to come in and take care of whatever our opponent brings in to answer our tokens. That is one of the risky parts of playing tokens, and why these cards aren't that common. There are sideboard cards like Illness in the Ranks or Virulent Plague, which really can wreck a token deck. So Duress is a way to answer our opponent's answers to our tokens. 3 disenchants, ensnaring bridges, it can hit Oblivion Stones. There's a lot of good targets. 2 more Oblivion Rings, more unconditional answers to everything, and 3 Journey to Nowhere, more answers to creatures. It is really good against the Eldrazi deck because it can hit a Reality Smasher, it can hit a Thought-Knot Seer, and their deck is not very good at removing enchantments. It is good there, but it's just a good answer to anything. Anyway, so that's the deck. It's pretty sweet, it's pretty fun, it's pretty cheap. I definitely had a lot of fun playing it. It plays differently than a lot of the decks that we've played recently on Budget Magic. It's definitely a go wide type strategy. We are the aggro deck in a lot of matchups, but we can kind of switch to being the control deck too, and eventually use our tokens to trade off with our opponent's creatures, and cards like Lingering Souls, and even cards like Lingering Souls, Promise of Brune, and even our Triplicate Spirits and Spectral Processions are just really good ways to be able to trade a fraction of one of our cards for a whole card of our opponent. When we are blocking a Dark Confidant with a Spirit token, we are coming out way ahead because we're trading a small bit of one of our cards for a full card of our opponent's. So we can use these cards to make profitable trades, and it gets even easier when we have our Intangible Virtues, our Zealous Persecutions, our Sorin, and so forth. Anyway, I think the deck's pretty competitive, and it can definitely be upgraded in a sweet way. Like, there is, well, before Eldrazi took over the world, there was like a tier 1.5, tier 2 version of this deck, so there is some cool ways to upgrade it. So make sure to check out the website for the article with the upgraded version and the ultra budget version. Also, we got tons of other great content, decks, prices, metagame strategy, pretty much everything and anything you could want related to Magic the Gathering. And if you enjoyed our Black-White Tokens video here on Budget Magic, make sure to click the subscribe button that's about to pop up on the bottom of your screen. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.